What's up, gamers? It's GoldDemon back with another Acheron Yep session, right? I just want to say thank you for all the recent support. It's awesome to see that my content's, finally reaching the people that need, help and all that stuff. But yeah, enough about the sappy stuff. Let's get into what I'm going to talk about today. Again, I'm going to try to keep this quick, but this will be what you need to farm for Acheron, okay? Uh, I will also be giving you a couple of tips to sort of save resources and do this smartly. So hopefully this proves useful to everybody, right? So for Acheron specifically, right, you're gonna want to farm Nihility Traces, and these are the new Nihility Traces, right? The same one that Black Swan uses. They can be found here on the map, on the Zanlofu, and whatever this part of the map is. I don't remember exactly. I believe it's the or no, the Alchemy Commission. So yeah, this is where you can find it, and that's where you're gonna want to farm for her because she's a new Nihility character. Any Nihility character going forward, for the Pinacoli updates, right, are gonna use this new material that they've released. You're also gonna want to farm some enemy materials called Dream Valves or like Dream Collections, right? It's gonna be this green thing right here, and it's associated purple and blue variants, right? The one that has a little face on it with like green stuff in the middle. This can be dropped from all of, or not all, but all the mechanical like type enemies in Pinacoli, right? So you got the gorilla, the TV, right? The little Dream Jolt dudes, right? And a couple other enemies like the trash can. So you're gonna want to farm that up. Again, these are pretty easy to acquire, so there's no reason to spend any like star glitter or anything on it. Just go around the map farming it. You'll get it farming other enemies, or if you've been playing this update, you probably have a decent amount, right? And in fact, let me actually pull up the amount that you want to use. Alright, we're risking it a little with this one, but this is what you're going to want to get, right? You're going to want to get this amount for each one of these, right? 139 for the big purples, 69 for the middle, and then 18 for the blue. You're going to want to use the, what's it called? The big bug, right? The big weekly boss, right? If you don't have that unlocked, go do the Ratio and Rune May quest on the Hertip space station to unlock the giant bug, right? Giant enemy spider that you have to fight to actually unlock this, right? You're going to need 12 of these. And its location is, well, we're going to teleport to it. Right here on the map, right? If you've been to this area, the seclusion zone, it's right here in the middle. You unlock it at the end of the quest. So yeah, you will also additionally need 73 of the purples for this, 71 of the blues, and then 65 of the green version. Alright. As for her actual boss, this is a boss that's already in the game. There's no new boss for her specifically. And you're going to want to farm. Let me actually pull it up. It's the Mara Struck Soldier, right? The same one that you farm for, not Blade. I forgot what his name is. I'll be honest. I think Luocha is who it was. Yeah. So we're going to fight this dude, right? He is found here on the map, like so. It's in one of the early areas in the Zanlofu, right? You'll find him. Stargazer, Navilia, down here at the bottom. This dude right here. Of course, for every other material, you're going to need 8 Tracks of Destiny. 3.9 million credits is about what it is to fully level the character up. That's including the XP cost for leveling them. You probably won't need this, as I don't expect players to level up her basic attack. But if you do want to do that, go right ahead. It's not like it's a net 0, right? And then if you are using only purples, you will, for a 5-star, you will need 291, right? Pretty simple. And just for reference, that is only the character material cost, not the weapon material cost. You will need to farm extra of the new Nihility Traces if you want to level up her weapon, specifically if you are getting her 5-star, which, like I've been saying in other videos, I do recommend. There's a pretty significant jump in power like this for most DPS signature light cones, right? They typically get a 20 to 30 increase in power over the 4-star alternative and or extra functionality. So it is worth getting a light cone like this as opposed to a support light cone, right? That typically they have options that work fine, that are 4-stars, right? And she's also very limited on what you have. So yeah, and in fact, I'll actually talk about the weapons. If you do want to know what weapons are going to work, it's basically just Good Night Sleep Well. All of her 4-stars none of these really do anything for her, as she either doesn't have a innate like debuff, no need for effect hit rate. She's not a DOT character, so that also doesn't do anything. And general like damage percent, right? None of these nihility light cones really do anything for her, so her best 4-star option is Good Night Sleep Well, even at S1. All right, it will be her best option for 4 stars up until S5, and then at that point, your next best option is actually going to be Silver Wolf's signature 5-star, right? This gives you crit and damage percent if they have 3 debuffs on them. And for the way you build your team, this is going to be very reliable, and this, because of its stats, right, performs very well next to Good Night Sleep Well, right? So it's one of those two. Everything else is basically not good on her and not really worth your time. So yeah, it just sort of is what it is. And yes, Good Night Sleep Well does beat out Welt's Light Cone. It's just a funny math thing. That's really how it works. If you, I talked about in my previous video, but the light cones for the supports, right, is basically Pearl Shine of Resolution of Sweat. I said that backwards, but you know what I mean. And before the tutorial mission starts, if you don't have this light cone, you're kind of out of luck for skill rotations and uptime on your ultimate. So you'll have to find a way to work around that. I may be running an energy recharge rope or something like that, right? There are ways to do it, but those 2 light cones are the ideal ones for your support characters, right? No matter who you use, you're going to want to use those 2 light cones together, and it'll be really good for Acheron's actual setups. And then obviously Acheron's best in slot light cone is her best in slot, right? It came with her. There are a couple notable mentions though, like Kafka's light cone. This can be used on E1 Black Swan to get extra synergy with Acheron. So if you don't have Kafka to use with your Black Swan and Acheron, or again, you shouldn't run this team because they're better off on their own team. But if you did have Black Swan E1, you could use Kafka's Light Cone on her and get some extra synergy out of it, right? And then run, separate teams like that. So there is other notable things. And again, and I'll reiterate myself for the light cones. Trend of Universal Market hasn't been around for a while, so it might be on this weapon banner. If so, that is fantastic. This is going to be great for if you run any preservation character on Acheron's team, right? If you've watched other videos, you'll understand. But because this applies a debuff and getting hit technically counts towards Acheron's thing, this does work, and it's definitely worth having and having leveled, right? I explained it in other videos, but I myself am doing a setup with Flame MC. You can use other preservation characters just fine. I'm just doing it for max, stacking potential, right? That's about it. As for the gear, because that's the next thing on the list, she has a few gear options, so it's not like the worst thing to farm. However, 100% Pioneer of the Dead Waters is made for her. The lore is literally based on her. Like, it doesn't get more simple than that. Also, design-wise, it's based on her. See these red flowers? Well, if we look up an image of Acheron, I spelled it wrong. My bad. If you look up it, I forgot there's another thing called what the heck? Okay, wait. I spelled it wrong. Oh my god, dude. I'm clowning in this video. Okay, Acheron Honkai. Alright, there we go. That took way too long. The red flowers, right? It's very obvious that this is the set made for her. It's what you're going to be running, right? It just is what it is. I will make one thing of note. Her ultimate does have a debuff, so this will always trigger on the ultimate, regardless of what light cone you use. Otherwise, you will need her signature light cone to guarantee triggers for this on her skill and basic, right? So keep that in mind. It's not like it doesn't completely kill the set because you're like 90% of your damage is the ult. So don't worry about like, oh, I don't get it on my skill. It's not a big deal. This is just her best set. It gives way too much, right? That's like 40 crit value and then 12% damage. It's absolutely huge. And you'll always have this up, right? So yeah, it's made for her. Like, it's just obvious. That's what the set was intended for. Other notable sets are 2-piece attack. So like there's the other dot set that's 2-piece attack. That's good. The 4-piece is useless, right? You can do the same thing with Musketeer, another 2-piece attack, right? Or you can 2-piece the lightning set if you again have that. Or there's the 4-piece lightning set. This is actually viable on her as she needs attack percent for her builds. her teams are lacking it, and attack percent on her is really good because she's got a high base, right? And scaling your base higher is always good. So the 4-piece works on here. If you have a good 4-piece and don't quite have a good Pioneer 4-piece yet, but Pioneer does gap significantly the other sets, right? So you're going to want to farm that 100%. And plus the other set, the break set, is really good on multiple characters, and especially if you've been playing for a couple updates, it's Rune May's new like best set, and it yeah, that's basically it. You'll get use out of this domain to some extent because you could just 2-piece for Gallagher, who, if you are summoning for Acheron, should use. So this set is worthwhile to farm in that regard. On to the planars, because I believe that's everything notable about the other relics. Yeah. I guess I should mention you could use 4-piece Quantum, right? But it's going to be worse than Pioneer. So keep that in mind. This is just the best. Onto the planars. I'm going to tell you this right now. Do not farm for her planars if you are trying to make her be like OP, right? If you have a good Inherit Stiletto? I think that's what it's called. Yeah, Inert Stiletto. I think that's how you pronounce that. You can use this and it will do pretty well, right? However, the new planar set will gap this, right? It's a small gap, right? It's a small few percentage points, but it is better generally to use that because her team's always going to be built like the same way. Other Nihility characters will be on the team. So the new set will gap this, but if you have a good Inert Stiletto, you can use this just fine. However, I'm gonna make the suggestion, right? This calendar's kind of small, my bad. But the next 2 weeks, so starting on the 11th Monday and the 18th on Monday, right? Those next 2 weeks, save your tokens, right? Because there's a trick that you can do, and many players have used this before, in terms of like grinding up new characters and new relic sets, and or if there's a double drop event, right? What you're gonna want to do is these tokens you get from the point rewards weekly, right? You get 4 of these, right? For the next 2 weeks, so the 11th, the 18th, those resets, save your tokens. Because you can save your tokens and you can start the update with 8 tokens in your bank and then do your point rewards and not claim these until you spend at least 4 tokens. So you can start the new update with 12 runs on the new domain to get your Acheron planars and the other planar set. So I highly recommend doing that if you are trying to make her like really good, right, and be the best. As well as generally, this is just a good idea because you'll get a head start in terms of farming her planar and the other planar. So definitely do that. I'm gonna be doing that. That's just a little trick you can do to get more use out of your tokens, and then as well you could save your other tokens for the other weeks if there is a double drop event, which there probably will be. Honkai runs those pretty often. Besides the new best one down here, you can technically use Galmoth, but it will be worse than running Space Station because she doesn't typically run this high of speed, so you don't get the full buff, right? And Space Station gives you more attack if you hit this very basic speed threshold. So if you have a good Space Station, and because she needs attack so much, this works very well. Other than that, nothing else is really notable, just really those 4. Nothing else really is good on her. But I will say, for your supports, right, Fleet of the Ages was good, Broken Neil is really good. And we don't really have any lightning the characters to make the full use of Pinacoli, but you could still use Pinacoli for the supports for the energy recharge and whatever rotation you're trying to do with energy, right? So it's still something notable. Or if you are just doing it for the energy, you can do certain like speed stuff with Von Whack, right? And get more debuff application. So yeah, consider this, right? Consider that. I believe that's it for the relics. So let's move on to the last thing. And the last thing is a little stats and math that I definitely was not about to forget to cover and came up with it like last second. No. So in case you're wondering, I like to do a lot of the math myself, just sort of like to see what it would be in a certain scenario with certain buffs. based on whatever parameters I set, right? I like to leave it simple and not complicate things, and also because I'm limited on time, I can't really do these massive damage spreadsheets. But you can obviously use this information I provide here to give you a general idea of how things work, and obviously I'll help people understand how you get to these numbers and all that stuff, right? If you have questions, always you can ask them down below. But basically, for Acheron's stats and what you want to actually use on her, right? In terms of gear, is you're gonna want to do as much crit damage and crit rate and attack as possible, right? While having a good amount of speed. So the target for speed, just like most characters in this game, for standard use is going to be 134. You want to target 134 speed on your team so that Acheron will at least get 2 turns for that cycle. And speaking of speed, speed is a sort of nuanced topic, but again, I want to make this quick. I've already yapped long enough. You just want to hit 134 for basic purposes. If you go any higher, it will be it will depend on your team building, right? You want your supports generally to be higher than Acheron, while she is, slightly slower, but still gets enough turns to do what she needs to do, right? And so there are multiple charts to see here if you just want to reference like what speed I should aim for. It's nothing too complicated, just get enough speed on your Acheron to function decently, right? Get this 2 turns, cycle 0, and have your supports be faster than her, right? You don't really need to complicate things. Of course, if you do make them hyper fast, you can get, extra actions in some scenarios, but it's not a big deal. But yeah, back to the stats thing. Besides the 134 speed, you're going to want a decent amount of base attack, attack percent, so that will scale better with her base attack, and enough crit to allow you to get a decent amount of crit rate, right? Aim for like 70 plus, and then, a decent amount of crit damage, so like 120 plus, right? I will mention, in case y'all don't know, this set right here, this 4% crit rate shows up in the stat screen, and when you get the bonus, it goes up by another 4%, right? So you do see that there. The crit damage does not show up in the stat screen, so keep that in mind, but this will be 24% crit damage once it's stacked. So yeah, again, a little bit of speed, a decent amount of crit and attack, and the body can be whatever you have better sets or subs for. So if you have better crit damage subs, right, you could do a crit rate body. If you have a crit damage, if you have a bunch of crit rate subs, you can do crit damage body, right? She has a decent amount of crit damage herself, and the sets do give a decent amount of crit rate, so it's not too hard to have a usable build, I would say. And then the boots, it depends on the build. If you're trying to run her at Sparkle E2 plus or in other setups of Sparkle and like perfect rotations, all that, you can use attack boots, right? But speed boots is recommended unless of course you are doing, like Sparkle, E2 plus, all that, right? Otherwise, again, you just want to hit that speed threshold. In terms of the planar, I already talked about that, but you actually want to do attack orb and attack rope. Attack percent does edge out a little bit more. That word has been ruined. Than lightning percent. But if you do get a lightning percent damage orb, that is really good. You can use that, right? It's a small difference, but attack is generally better for her. And that's basically it for this one. I think I've yapped on longer than I was hoping, but yeah, hopefully this helps for anybody for pre-farming, right? And the tips of farming, relics helped. But yeah, thank you for the support. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more. And if you have questions, ask them below. I'll see you guys later.